Hello everyone and welcome back to Diecast Driven with your host, Matthew Carr. On the turntable today we have Kevin Harvick's 2018 Consumer Energy 400 raced version diecast from the Michigan International Speedway. As you can see, this is a Ford Fusion from the Stewart-Haas Racing stable, sponsored by Busch Light and Mobil 1. This was actually the second race with which this sponsor combination was run in 2018. The reverse fixture of it was ran at the Coca-Cola 600 in Charlotte in May and had Mobil 1 as the primary sponsor on the hood and Busch Light as the sponsor on the back. As for the race, Kevin started in third position and ended up leading 108 of the 200 laps for the event, winning the race by a margin of 3.2 seconds. So the reason I decided to showcase this car first is because it was from my now wife, then girlfriend's very first NASCAR race. At that point in time, I had been to Michigan probably 25 times with my dad and family and friends, and we had only been dating for about a year, so I figured it was about time to take her to her first NASCAR race. Through a mutual friend, I was able to get cold passes, so before the race started, we could go through pit road and check out all the cars and walk on the track, take her through the infield, see victory lane, get our picture there, and sign the track. I really wanted to impress her since we'd only been dating a year, and I had to make her first race a memorable one. So naturally, we showed up later than I had hoped, but I wanted to give her the full experience, so we went outside the track where all the tents and vendors are for the resale market behind the start-finish line, so she got a taste of what it's like to kind of bargain hunt and look in all of the NASCAR junk that's outside the track. Then we went inside and looked at all the hauler merchandise and the team stuff that was inside the track, but outside of the start-finish line and grandstand area. And then I decided, we got to go get our credentials, so we had to run over to turn 1 where the credential pickup was, then run all the way back to where the start finish line was, go under the tunnel, come out on pit road, and then we were finally able to walk up and down pit road and look at the cars. And it was at this point where she said that she really liked the 4 car because it had mountains on the side of it and it was blue. So I guess that's a good reason if you're gonna pick a car. Typically that's how she does it. She likes that car because it's that color or it has that design on it. So this one didn't really surprise me, but it just so happened that she decided to pick the winner of that race that day for her first race. And it's actually kind of weird because in that same fall Michigan race in 2014, which I was at, I took a picture and put it on my Snapchat story and then later saved it when we had the pre-race pit passes of Jeff Gordon's car calling his shot that day to say that he was going to be the Pure Michigan 400 winner. Turned out he was the winner that day too. So I don't know what that means, but it's kind of cool. So after all the pre-race ceremonies and her signing the front stretch, we left the track. We were working our way up to our seats in the grandstands, but I decided since it was her first race, she needed to get the full effect of the speed of the cars. So I talked to one of the stewards that was standing at the bottom of the grandstands next to the fence during the pace laps, and I told her, I said, hey, this is my girlfriend's very first race. Can we stand here for the first 2 laps so she can get a full experience of how fast these cars actually are? And she was pretty reluctant to let us do that because of the speeds with which the cars are flying by, but since it was her first race and it was a special moment for her, the nice steward lady obliged, and it was pretty cool to see the smile on my girlfriend's face as the cars came roaring by at about 200 miles an hour. So it was a really cool first race experience, and that's the importance of this car in my collection. I love the way that it has all the confetti on it. Race version diecasts are by far my favorite, and this particular car is really neat because it has that first race calling of the shot story behind it. So it's kind of an oddball in my personal collection, but it's one that has a lot of meaning to us. So I'll be the first to tell you that I know very little about Taylor Swift. I have never really listened to her music or particularly liked any of her music. However, I do have quite the vast, useless amount of knowledge of NASCAR and NASCAR paint schemes. So about 6 years ago when my wife told me that she liked the Taylor Swift Red album, I put 2 and 2 together that, Juan Pablo Montoya raced a Taylor Swift paint scheme back at Kansas in 2012. And so I started doing a little research, found out that it was the Hollywood Casino 400. Just seemed like a pretty average race for old Juan back in the day. He started the race in 24th position and worked his way up to 16th by the end of it. Didn't lead any laps. Did finish on the lead lap, however. In a way, this race is kind of emblematic of Juan's NASCAR career. He was always a solid driver, hung around the top 10, 15, 20th position nearly every race, but he wasn't exactly lighting the world on fire. He did have his moments where he shone and led a lot of laps, like 2009 Brickyard 400, I think, where he had that speeding penalty. He probably should have won that race. And there were some other instances, but it's pretty unfortunate that his entire NASCAR career is generally remembered for the time where, well, I think everybody knows at this point. In his NASCAR career, Juan put up some good numbers. In his 255 starts over 9 seasons, he did find victory lane twice in 2007 at Sonoma and again at Watkins Glen in 2010. But he also put up 24 top 5s, 59 top 10s, won 9 poles, and led over 1,000 laps. He had an average start of just under 18 and an average finish of just under 20th. But Juan's driving talent was clearly on display for everybody to see. So it is pretty unfortunate that he gets this bad reputation in NASCAR just because he hit the jet dryer that one time. But anyway, as for this particular car that you see here, it was fully custom made by me for my wife. I took it all apart, stripped it down, repainted it, put new decals on it, gave it that automotive clear coat for the shine to protect the decals and to look good this many years later. So overall, it was a fun build. I enjoyed making it. She also liked receiving this as a gift. Now she doesn't really care so much for Taylor Swift, but she still has the car because it has some of that sentimental value from when we started dating. But overall, I like the car. I like the clean, nice look of it, just the all white with the red decals. No graphic design behind any of the decals. It's just very simple. It's a very clean looking paint scheme again, with the spoiler painted white, the shark fin painted white down the rear glass, and the splitter. It's just a very, very solid looking paint scheme. One sort of funny, not really funny story about this particular diecast is that after I gave it to her, she took it back to her house, and then when I went to visit her at a later date, the spoiler was sitting next to the car. And so I asked what happened. She said, I dropped it. You know, naturally, these things are meant to be displayed, not to be played with, but she found out soon enough that this is a collector's item, something very important and delicate. So I glued it on, fixed a couple of the paint chips that she had managed to place so delicately into the car, and was able to fix it up. So it turned out pretty good. So obviously you can't really put a value to the worth of this car, but it is kind of interesting with Taylor's resurgence in popularity lately that it might be worth a little bit more, but who knows.